Okay, I think we're going to have to move forward because we're going to run out of time. Let's get started. Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, all right. So Jonathan, you'll take this down, and then I guess, Mauro, you have your own slides to add on.
I will have to share my screen, right, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, well, before you do that, let's introduce everyone. I want to say good morning to all of our attendees, and thank you to my sponsors. My name is Peggy West. I am with Pure Clean. We are the water, fire, mold, and restoration company. I wanted to say happy holidays so I don't forget in the beginning. And I want to also make one comment about the flyer that went out, and I did not catch this until yesterday, and I apologize. This class is from 10 a.m. until noon. So I have my mask on. I'm just trying to remind everyone to please wear your mask. I've been saying this month after month after month, and I just want to say I hope everyone has a safe holiday. So I'll take it off to continue. Today's class is the Principles of Asphalt Pavement Maintenance, and we're going to introduce each other one by one, the sponsors that are on here, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and the company. Again, I want to start with Pure Clean. We've been around for 30 years. We have approximately 30 offices in the state of Florida all around you here. We do specialize in the water damage, fire, mold, and mildew, and also COVID-19 treatments. So we're doing restoration, and we can also do renovation. With that, I'm going to say we also offer an emergency management plan. This EMP is good for all condominiums in particular and clubhouses, because we can denote the exit points and the air conditioners and any water entry points. So I'm going to turn this over now to Jonathan Duro. He is the Managing Director of Vinteum Software and our coordinator today, and also the monitor for the class.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Peggy. Thank you for all of the panelists for joining, as well as attendees. Looking forward to another fantastic webinar. Again, as we're looking at some of the features that Zoom offers, there's two areas to consider here. We've got the Q&A. So as questions come up throughout the presentation, whether that is relating to paving, or maybe it's about funding or landscaping or restoration or communication, feel free to send it in that Q&A section, as well as we've got the chat. If you've got any questions or concerns from a technical side, you're not able to hear us, not able to see us, send those in the chat. And thank you, Peggy, for the introduction. Again, my name is Jonathan. I'm the Managing Director here at Vinteum Software. We make communication software and portals for HOAs, condos, and their management companies. So what we do is put together a public-facing website with a secure backend portal, which is going to have access to things like community documents. You're able to send service tickets and service requests to management, to the board. We've got a mobile app, so you could do this right on the phone, right through your iPhone and Android application. We do have an integration with Zoom, so you can actually make decisions even as we're physically distancing. We've got some survey tools. We've got voice automated messages where we could put together a paragraph of text and call residents individually on their landline cell phone. Great for those that might not subscribe to email. So we've got a lot of awesome tools, and would love to share some more with you. At the end of the meeting, I'll go ahead and send my communication contact information in the chat, and feel free to get in touch with me that way. Thanks, Peggy.
Okay, we're just going to move along here, and the next one to be introduced, Dawn, you want to introduce your company?
I will let the owner, Mauro Camuzzi, introduce the company since he's so good at it.
Thank you. How are you, everybody? My name is Mauro Camuzzi. I'm the president and owner of The Paving Lady. This is Dawn behind me, our marketing and business development manager. We are a full-service asphalt maintenance business. We've been established for 35 years. We do everything from pothole repairs all the way to repaving and anything else that needs to be done on your driveways, your parking lots, your roadways. We also do concrete repairs. So anything that has to do with your parking lot, anything that has to do with your sidewalks, we can take care of. We are offering now a very, very important in the times that are going on. We're also offering contactless evaluations and proposals. So there is no physical contact if our clients require that. So we are very COVID aware. So, you know, I'm going to leave it up to you guys to enjoy the class, and it's not going to be about me. It's going to be about you guys. So.
Thanks, Mauro. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn over to Lisa Elkin. She's our Vice President of Alliance Association Bank. Lisa?
Well, good morning, all, and thank you all for attending today. My name is Lisa Elkin. I'm with Alliance Association Bank. And just remember, our middle name says it all. We only do association deposits and loans. So with your communities, I want you to think of the A, B, and C. A is for association only products and services, where you earn interest on all your accounts, even your operating account. B is for better business financing, where we can provide loans for paving projects by the Paving Lady, landscape projects by Brightview, APB Security. So we provide all that types of financing. And C is for convenience, where we truly bring the resources of the bank to you. So just remember, with Lisa at AB, it's one focus and one expertise, and that's time and money savings for your communities. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to move along to Jimmy Gonzalez. He is with LM Funding, the Regional Business Development Director. Jimmy? Is Jimmy on? Okay, I know he had an appointment, so we'll circle back to him possibly later on in the class. So now I want to welcome Beth Rappaport. She's the Senior Account Manager for Brightview Landscaping. Beth, take it away.
Good morning. I'm Beth Rappaport with Brightview Landscaping. I'm happy to be here today. And thank you so much to our speakers and sponsors and Jonathan for making this happen. We really appreciate it. It's a great way to end the week before Thanksgiving. Brightview's teams create and maintain beautiful, safe outdoor environments for residential communities just like yours. Our range of services includes landscaping, fertilization, pest control, irrigation, mulch, tree care, and sports turf. So all your landscaping needs, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to provide a no-stress quotation for any size project. Thank you so much.
Okay, very nice. Okay, and last, we have our final sponsor is APB Security. I have Art Cummings on, who's going to do his introduction, the owner and the operator of the company. Art?
Hello and good morning. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody for next week. But American Protection Bureau is a licensed uniform security agency. We operate solely in Southeast Florida, in Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties. We serve numerous venues, including HOAs, commercial properties, education facilities, strip malls, menagerie of everything. We're capable of designing and setting up any type of service for any type of client. And we've managed to finish the year this year surviving and doing fairly well. We've had challenges, like everybody's had challenges, and I think our security officers have done extremely well staying safe, working safe, because security officers are essential. But we have a fantastic team, ready and willing to serve anybody in any venue. So we appreciate any invitation to discuss your security services. And happy birthday to my cohort, Tom.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Tom. Tom is the regional representative for Art. Tom, would you like to say a short few words, or?
No, I think my boss pretty much covered everything that I had to say. But okay, just to remind everybody, we cover the Tri-County area. We're a boutique type of boots on the ground security company. We've been very efficient, and this is a good time to be talking to your security company. If you have a good security company, they should have been approaching you and talking to you about all the different events and situations that come up on an everyday life, as we all know. Thank you very much for having us on board. Tom with APB Security.
Okay, and you can get all of the credentials to all of those guests that we have today. I want to thank you again. And I want to remind everyone, if you haven't been on our chats before, or tell you that you can ask a question on the chat, and our monitor, who is Jonathan, will pull the question at the moment and try to introduce the question so that way we can get it in a timely manner. With that, I'm going to turn it over back to Mauro for your class. The class is the Principles of Asphalt Pavement Maintenance, and it will be over at 12 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody hear me okay? I want to make sure everybody can, right? I'm going to share my screen. All right, did that work? Everybody
Yes.
see it?
Yes, wonderful.
Great. Okay, so again, thank you very much. My name is Mauro. I am Mauro Camuzzi. I'm the president and owner of the Paving Lady. Like Peggy said, Principles of Asphalt Pavement Maintenance is the class. I want to thank everybody, especially all of the panelists and the sponsors that put this on. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. And I also want to thank Dawn for making it possible as well. So we're going to spend a little bit of time together today. We're going to talk about asphalt maintenance. We are going to, I like keeping these things common sense. I don't want to get into many technical terms and things of that nature. I am more of the keep it simple, and that way you guys can kind of understand it, because when I talk about asphalt, I can pretty much understand anything I'm saying. I just want to make sure everybody else can. So that's what we're going to do here today. And, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the class. If you have any questions, I believe just go ahead and put them in the chat or in the questions and answers. And Jonathan, I guess at the end, we'll talk about them.
Whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, keep them in the Q&A if you could. And Mauro, up to you. They could wait to the end, or if you'd like me to, bring in relevant questions throughout, I can.
If you could, I mean, if I see we're pressed for time, I'll may take it to the end before I answer them. But if there is a question, if you want to raise your hand, I'll go ahead and answer. So wonderful. Let's go ahead and get started. So, whoops, mouse is a little tricky today. All right, so for me, it's one of the most important things, for me to help you guys understand about asphalt pavement maintenance is to teach you or help you understand, what you're looking at when you're out in your parking lots, your roadways, and your HOAs and condos, what have you, whatever property you're at. So it's very important that you understand the makeup of asphalt, number one, and how it's constructed from the beginning, because most of you go and see you walk out into your parking lot and you see the black asphalt or the gray asphalt after it's been out there for a long time. And, their first instinct is to think that that is the roadway or that is your parking lot. It's only part of it. So it's very important that you guys understand what really lies beneath it and what makes up the asphalt and everything else that's there that actually is your roadway or parking lot. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this thing, on this one slide. And to me, it's one of the most important slides, because once you understand this, the rest could be a little bit of common sense. Okay. And that to me is my goal, is that you will walk away from this class and say, well, okay, I remember this, and how do I apply it to my parking lot or roadway? So in this slide that you guys see, you're going to notice that on this top right-hand corner, it's very important you look at this. So you walk out in your parking lot and you see the black surface, and well, that's my parking lot. It's part of your parking lot. Your parking lot is made up of a whole system of layers, or a section of layers that makes up that parking lot or roadway. Now, one without the other would not give you a very stable roadway surface or parking lot surface to park on. So it's very important to understand how these components, all these courses come together. So we're going to talk a little bit about these, okay? Let's talk first about your sub-base course, this course that's on the bottom. What is the sub-base course? Well, sub-base course is your virgin soil or your native soil of your property. Let's say you bought a property and you developed it, and you put in a roadway or a building or a parking lot. What's there now, if it's stable enough and if it's compactable enough, and if an engineer deems it good for loads and compression, your subbase is what it is. It's what's there. It's what was the native soil. So sometimes you get into areas closer to the intercoastal, there might be some muck, there might be some bad material. Those things need to come out, and new subbase course goes in, and they bring in fill from somewhere else, they compact it. And at that point, now you're playing with a very stable beginning, a good palette to start from, correct? So the subbase, very important to understand, it's your native soil or what you're starting with, okay? You know, that's a very important part of it, but you typically will never see that being a condo association or an HOA. That typically happens before construction. The following is a base course, what's on top of that. Now, your base course is probably the most important part of the entire section that you see here on this slide. Why do I say that? Well, your sub-base course can take some loads, but your base course is really what's taking all of the loads from vehicles or equipment or what have you on your properties, your parking lots, your roadways. That base course is what's truly holding up. So if you have a truck that comes into your parking lot, you know, your dump trucks, you know, the asphalt isn't holding that up. The sub-base isn't holding that up, even though it is a little bit. It's that base course, that 8 to 12 inches usually. I know on the slide it says 6 to 8, depending on the type of parking lot and the loads. You're going to find it's going to be usually 8 to 12 nowadays of a certain material. Now let's talk about that material, okay? Two different types of material that have been used down here for decades, okay? As a base course. This is what's brought in after your sub-base is already done, and they put in layers of this base course to give you 8 to 12 inches. Now, the two different types of material. Let's start with the older one that's been around forever. It's called shell rock, okay? Shell rock. The quarries back in the day used to be anywhere here up in Palm Beach County. It's pretty, I could pretty much venture to tell you that if your condo was built or your HOA was built prior to, you know, the 90s or in the 80s or prior, you're probably going to have shell rock. And shell rock is a very good material. You put it in, you compact it. Once it's compacted, it's very good material. Problem with shell rock is that once it's compacted, and if it's not covered with something, asphalt, we'll talk about that. But if it's not covered with something, you can disturb it very easily. And once it gets disturbed, you have to restabilize it. You know, it doesn't get to a very hard pan that we like to see, but it's good as long as it doesn't get disturbed. So let's say you put in that base rock or shell rock and you cover it up right away with asphalt. You know what? You're in good shape. Let's say later on you do some maintenance to that asphalt, and you're going to notice that, you know, as you drive equipment on that shell rock that's exposed, it becomes disturbed easily and you have to restabilize it. So shell rock is very good, but what I like to see is what they see now and the way things are built today. And the way things are built today is mostly what's called lime rock. That's your second type of base course, okay? And lime rock is you know, out of quarries. You know, here in Florida we have a lot of lime rock in under the ground, and that's what's used. And lime rock, once it gets compacted, it's very strong, very strong. But the composition of both of these types of bases is you have bigger aggregate that ties in with finer aggregate. Now, if you could see this picture here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is gravel. And that's what they use up north a lot. If somebody's from up north in New York and up that way, you're gonna see gravel a lot below asphalt. Here, we don't use that. Here we use lime rock. But if you can imagine, let's say that picture there shows you, you know, lime rock. It looks about the same, except not so rocky, but you have a lot of what's called fines holding all those bigger rocks together. So in theory, if you leave that alone and nothing happens, you don't touch it, you don't rain on it, you know, it's a very good base material. Now, how many of you are from, let's say, the Midwest, or you've been to a farm and you see a gravel road that they put in, and that gravel road gets compacted, or they run it over with certain equipment, and that's your road for a certain period of time? Well, it's really good for a little while, right? But then what happens? It rains. So when that water comes down, it starts to wash the fines away that's holding all of that together. And what ends up happening is you start getting rutting in that rock. You start getting potholes in that rock because the fines are washing away, and you're losing the stabilizing material that's holding everything together. It's all interlocked. But once those fines start to wash away, it starts to spread. You start to get the ruts. You start to get the damage. So, you know, that's why a while back, asphalt was sought out as a great waterproofing membrane for your roadway. And that's really all asphalt is. Because in asphalt here in South Florida, we use 1 inch, sometimes to 1.5, depends on the way the parking lot is designed. So if a parking lot is designed for heavier trucks, they'll go a little thicker. If it's just vehicular traffic in an HOA, if it's, you know, a parking lot, 1 inch is typically what we find. When they build brand new ones, what they do is, how many of you have gone and driven by a construction site and you'll see that there's a parking lot that they just built and they'll cover it with asphalt during construction? Well, all they're doing is putting a 3/4 inch lift. And then after construction, they're putting in the other 3/4 inch lift to give you that 1.5 inches. Well, why do you think that they put in that 3/4 inch lift? It's to protect the rock that they put down from traffic and weather. So you'll notice asphalt go in first, and people think, well, why do they want to put that asphalt in now if they're just going to build on it? Well, because they just invested a lot of money in a lot of base material, and to give their construction crews solid ground to work on. If it didn't rain, or if traffic didn't hurt it, they would just tell you, leave it alone and we'll do 1.5 inches at the end of the project. But they put in a first lift of asphalt, 3/4 inch thick, finish the construction, and then they come back and do another 3/4 inch of asphalt. So you people from up north, you know, let me show you something. I mean, up north, you'll find asphalt this thick, right? And that's typically what you see in the roadways compared to what you see down here. Big difference, right? So, you know, asphalt is different in every part of the country, but here in South Florida, it's the way we're going to talk about it, because that's where we are. And I want you guys to understand how it's what you typically see down here. So, but why was asphalt? Not only because it's a good waterproofing agent, but it's also a flexible pavement. So with a asphalt thickness of this thick, and if you guys can see that, my thumb, so this is less than 1 inch. This is about, it's right about 1 inch. So with something like this is flexible. I can't bend this myself right now. It is actually deflecting a little bit, but every time a car runs this over, this flexes, okay? So, and then it comes back to its form. You can't see it with the naked eye. So with a 1 inch thickness of a material, you can protect your rock and your subbase from deterioration. Now, what would happen if you try to do it with concrete this thick? The concrete would break. Concrete's very brittle. Asphalt is very flexible, okay? You can't see it here, but it's flexible. So it's a flexible pavement that acts as a waterproofing agent for your base and your subbase. So if you don't get much out of this class, just get this. In that one slide, you see the makeup of your parking lots and roadways. Your asphalt is there to take care of your base course and your subbase, but your subbase and base course are there to take care of your asphalt. Why? Because 1 inch thick of asphalt, if I put it down on bad soil or bad base, will break. It's only as good as the base you put it on. So one of these on these picture cannot work without the other. They can put it down and it'll last a certain period of time, but overall it will not last. So that's why every one of these items or courses is very important. The surface course is very important because you drive on it, you walk on it. The base course is very important because it takes the loads from the cars and it actually gives you a good foundation for your asphalt. All right. Most of the time, asphalt will, or this roadway section will deteriorate from the top down. Asphalt typically deteriorates from the top down, correct? But here in South Florida, you can get attacked from two ways, from the top and from the bottom. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on how we get attacked from the bottom. But if you can remember that asphalt's going to deteriorate from the top down, and that is a flexible pavement, and you have 1 inch. Typically down here, when we do overlays and things like that, that's what we use. So that's very important. I like spending a little bit of time on that. Now, when we look at the designs of asphalt, okay, what is asphalt? Well, asphalt, the true form of it is a liquid. You know, it's a semi-solid liquid, let's call it, right? It's a byproduct of the petroleum industry that you mine it, you can get it in certain asphalt regions. You have a lot of asphalt lakes that the asphalt pitch actually comes out of the ground in some countries, but asphalt's truly a liquid. Asphalt pavement now, asphalt pavement is when you take that liquid and you mix it with aggregate. Now, what is aggregate? Aggregate is exactly what it sounds like. It's rocks or different types of solid material, right? Asphalt pavement is made up of asphalt, the liquid asphalt, plus all different sizes of aggregate, all the way from a piece of sand to a 3/4 inch rock, correct? So you have all these aggregates mixed in with the asphalt. And when you get it, if you notice in this picture down here, you could see all the rocks in that asphalt, all the aggregate. Now you can't see some of the smaller ones, but it's all mixed together. It's at a plant. It's put in a dump truck and brought to your site. Now, when you roll and compact that, it becomes a very tight-faced pavement, okay? So it becomes a waterproofing pavement. The aggregate varies in size based on the mixed design that is used for your pavement, okay? And we'll talk about mixed designs in a second, but I'm only going to talk about, there's a lot of mixed designs. And I'm going to talk about the ones that you're going to see in your HOAs, your condo associations, your parking lots, and different type of commercial applications. But typically what we see here in South Florida or in Florida is, you have two different types of mixed designs here in South Florida. And what you're going to notice is an S-type asphalt that you can see down here, S-type asphalt, or an SP-type asphalt. Okay, so an S and an SP. So let's talk about the S-types. S-types have been around for decades. It's what was used, predominantly in pretty much every application down here. I would venture to say that most HOAs that you have that are over 10 years, 15 years old have an S-type asphalt in them. Even a lot of them being built today, an S-type asphalt. So in the S-types, you have S1, S2, and S3, okay? So again, 3 different types, S1, S2, and S3. What is the difference between them? Anyone? Okay. S1, S2, and S3. The number is the size of the aggregate, okay? S1 being the biggest aggregate. So what did we say aggregate was? Rocks, right? And different types of stone. So S1 is the largest. S2 is smaller. S3 is the smallest, okay? So S1 is what you'll typically find in very heavy duty asphalt applications. Let's call it for industrial applications, for areas that have a lot of semi trucks, areas that have a lot of weight that it has to, a lot of weight capacity that needs to be there. So S1 is usually for a, you know, non-residential application because you're going to see a lot of the aggregate. You're always going to see aggregate in your asphalt, but in the finished product in an S1, you're going to see a lot of it. Now, S1 could also be used as a, what we call a binder course or a structural course below your final course. So if you need 3 inches of asphalt, well, they might put S1. So if you look at this pour here, you can see 2 different types or 2 different colors, right? So you might use the bottom one as an S1 and the top one as an S3, and we'll talk about the S3, but your S1 is typically bigger aggregate, you lay it down thicker, and it's more structural. S2 is not used anymore. You'll hardly ever see S2 ever again. S3 is what you guys will typically see in your parking lots. And, you know, and it's got a smaller size aggregate and it finishes a lot nicer. So, you know, what you'll notice in an S3 is you'll see a smoother finish. You won't see as much aggregate as you would in an S1, but it's a smoother finish and you can put it down at 1 inch and 1.5 inches. Whereas the S1 minimum thickness is 1.5 inches. So because you have bigger aggregate and you need to be able to hide it. So S-types asphalts are great. You know, we put them down almost every single day that we're paving. We put down an S-type asphalt. It's probably, you know, I'd venture to say that 70% of the asphalt that comes out of those plants is an S-type asphalt. And let me remind you also that most of the asphalt that comes out of these plants today, the majority, 99%, has recycled asphalt in it. So we are in an industry that recycles a lot of its own products. So we'll take that asphalt that we remove in parking lots, send it back to the plant. They stock it and they use it as aggregate back inside their new mixes. So you'll find right now anywhere between 30 to 40% recycled asphalt in 99% of the mixes that come out of the plants. So that's the S-type asphalts. Well, with technology getting as good as it did and getting better every day, you know, people started to talk about, yeah.
One quick question just came from Dale. In this photo on the slide, what sort of asphalt is that? Is that an S-type asphalt?
That is, you know, it's very difficult to tell whether it's an S-type or an SP type, but I can tell you it's probably comparable to an S1 or an SP 12.5 because of the size of the aggregate. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But it's really difficult to see the type of asphalt just from that picture. But, you know, it could be either one. I mean, it's very difficult to tell the difference. You know, typically you can tell the difference on the finished product. That's not rolled and compacted yet. On a finished product is where you could definitely probably see it. I hope that answered your question, but we can talk about that a little bit later on as well when I get it back into some of the other things. But
perfect.
So with technology getting better, DOT decided, look, we need to come up, Department of Transportation, decided that we need to come up with better asphalts that are going to withstand, you know, better to the elements, traffic, and something that's going to wear less and last longer. So what they came up with was with what we call Super Pave, SP. That's what the SP stands for, this letter here, SP 9.5. You notice it here, right? Well, that's Super Pave asphalt. So what is the major difference between a Super Pave and an S asphalt? It is a Super Pave. It has what's called polymer modified binder. So the binder, which is the asphalt, has polymers and sometimes fiber reinforced things done to it when it's in the asphalt plant. So they mix these polymers with the asphalt, and it makes it a super binder. I mean, that's why they call it Super Pave. So that Super Pave asphalt will last longer, will wear different, It withstands traffic a little better. Now, what you're typically going to see here, remember in the S types, you have S1, S2, and S3. Well, in Super Pave, what you're going to see here is SP 9.5 and SP 12.5. There's another one, SP 19.5, but you'll never see it. SP 9.5 and SP 12.5. Who can guess what the 9.5 or the 12.5 mean? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. It's the size of the aggregate again. But this time, they break it down to millimeters. So they're saying that the largest aggregate in that, or the average of the largest aggregate in that, is 9.5 millimeters. Okay? 12.5, 12.5 millimeters. So SP95 has smaller aggregate. SP12.5 has larger aggregate. So S1 is comparable to a SP12.5. S3 is comparable to the SP 9.5. And what you're going to notice also in the SP, there's a lot more liquid in it, meaning more asphalt. And what you're going to notice, it smooths out better when you roll it and compact it. So that is the biggest difference between that, okay? Between the S type and the S3. Plus the quality control in the mix design is tremendous. When they're actually batching it, the quality control is a lot more stringent. Now, typically in brand new construction, in your HOA roadways nowadays, you're finding 1.5 inch. Brand new construction, 3/4 inch lift and another 3/4 inch lift. That varies depending on the engineers. But our typical asphalt maintenance, when we do, let's say, an overlay, 1 inch. So again, this is your typical thickness of an asphalt right here. So you got about 1 inch and about 1.5 inches, right? So this is what you typically see. Now, if you can notice, you notice all the aggregate in there, right? All those rocks. Well, that's what asphalt looks like. So you can see it from the top as well. Now, asphalt, like we talked about, wears from the top down. Now look at this piece of asphalt. Pretty impressive, right? Look, gray. It's gray. Why? It got oxidized by the sun. Look at the bottom of that same piece of asphalt. Black. Look at the inside of it. Black. Top of it's gray. You know, here in South Florida, our asphalt will go from a jet black to a gray to a whitewashed white. So see how white this one is? And that's because 2 reasons. Number one, the sun oxidizes the asphalt. Look at the bottom of this piece of asphalt. It's black. Look at the middle of it. It's black. Just the top is that white. So the sun beats down on it and it oxidizes the asphalt. The other reason our asphalt turns white quicker down here than it does up north is we use lime rock as aggregate in the asphalt. Up north, they use granite. Granite's darker. So as the asphalt, the black asphalt pitch or the black asphalt liquid washes off the rocks, you get the natural color of the aggregate, which is whiter, right? Up north, they use granite, which will be blacker. So again, from this slide, yes.
One quick question came in as we're talking about the makeup of asphalt. I got a question. Is glass still used in asphalt?
That's a great question. I haven't seen it. What they're doing still, they kind of got away from that down here. I don't know if they're doing it in other parts of the country. What they are using a little bit is rubber, you know, recycled rubber. And you know, we don't see that anymore down here either, but I know that they do it elsewhere. But you do see some mixed designs that call for rubber. And typically you see that on highways, you know, or feeder roads or high speed and high traffic. Not typically in HOAs, you're going to have your S type or your SP95 type.
Wonderful. And one other quick question. This is coming from Dale. Our association is in Central Florida. Is this discussion applicable to them, you know, throughout the state? I know that different weather patterns have different effects on asphalt.
Yes.
You know,
and we'll get to that, how it'll affect in different areas for different things. But I will tell you, Dale, you being from Central Florida, in Orlando area, have you noticed that sometimes your roads look almost like a red color? And that's because, you'll notice it now that I say this, if you've ever been to Orlando, anybody here, and driven some of the roads, older roads, you'll notice that some of that roads look almost, they have a red tint to them. That's because their aggregate there is like a clay. So the aggregate, remember I told you, here it'll turn white because of the lime rock. There it'll turn reddish. Up north it'll stay black longer because they use granite. So there's different applications, but the mixed designs are almost the same. Okay. Sometimes they're called a little bit different names, but if I take an S3 here, there is a typical S3 type mix somewhere else in the country that you may not call it an S3. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Dale says he's Melbourne Beach.
Okay. Okay. So you may not see that red, that red tint, but you'll see that every now and then. If you're ever in Orlando visiting, you'll see it.
Wonderful. So, I do have one more quick question. You might get to it, but costs. Are there cost differences between S123, SP, that sort of thing?
That's a great question. And yes, there is. Typically an SP is more expensive. If you look at the posted price on any plant, you'll see an asphalt type is less expensive than an SP. We as a company, we get it pretty much at the same price. So because we order so much. So for us, there is no difference. We just go with what the engineer specs or what we can give the association.
Wonderful.
So this is one slide that's the most important, and I hope you take a lot from this, and I like spending a lot of time with it. So let's keep going here. Now, this is a great slide as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but what I want you guys to have is this is a guide, okay? And if you notice, this is a typical life cycle, okay? And I say typical because every parking lot is different. There isn't one parking lot that's the same as the other. If you have a condo association, you may have been built in different phases, right? One phase was built one year, one phase was built the other year. Those two parking lots are going to wear and they're going to deteriorate differently, even though everything was spec the same and everything was installed the same. Could have been different weather than when they installed it. It could have been done by a different contractor. It could have been installed in not so great conditions. So there's different things that can happen. Now, typically the life cycle of asphalt is going to be anywhere from 15 years to about 35 years. It depends on what? Traffic, the way it was built and designed, and weather. I mean, if you don't think over the last 3 months here in South Florida, our parking lots have gotten deteriorated tremendously from all the rain we've had. It's amazing to see our clients calling us and showing us, Morrow, we've got 18 potholes in here now. That's because a lot of different factors that we'll get into, but this is typical life cycle. As you notice, as asphalt gets older, it needs more maintenance. Who does that remind you of? All of us, right? And there isn't one person that's alike, right? Same thing with asphalt and same thing with parking lots. We all need maintenance. As we get older, there's a typical life cycle of us, but as we get older, we need more maintenance. And not everybody's going to age the same, right? Same thing with asphalt. As you can see in this picture, in this slide, 0 to 5 years, typically no maintenance, 5 to 7, a little bit more, 7 to 15. And as it goes on, you'll see that the condition of the parking lot gets worse and more maintenance is needed, okay? So the only thing I would change about this is in that 0 to 5 years where it says little or no maintenance, I would add seal coating into this at 1 year. 1 year in from brand new asphalt, I would add seal coating. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is a great little thing to come back to every now and then to know, but just know this isn't wine. It doesn't get better with age, okay? It gets worse with age. Now, traffic will help asphalt cure, but at some point it starts to deteriorate and get worse with age. Brand new asphalt loves traffic. The more traffic gets on it, the better it is because it helps compact it. The tires help knead out all the oils to cure out of that asphalt. So this is very good. Remember, if you think your parking lot needs maintenance, it probably needs a lot more than what you think. So this is a great little guide, 0 to 5 years, you shouldn't see it, and so forth and so forth. So
as far as the wear, I've got a question. Do roadways wear the same as a parking lot?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. Parking lots, typically I will see wear and tear. Depends on the parking lot. And roadways are designed, it depends on the type of road, right? An HOA is designed as the same thing as a parking lot. The HOA roadway is pretty much the same as a parking lot. But what happens in parking lots, you have a lot of sitting traffic, right? Just sitting. And the load is sitting all the time on it. And what happens there? You have oil leaks from the cars. You have different, cars sitting still, turning their tires. Roadways, you have cars driving, right? And the loads aren't sitting on it most of the time. They're driving. And the other thing about roadways is, you don't have a lot of turning and twisting sitting still, so roadways typically last longer. And it also depends on how it's built. Asphalt hates water. We don't like water, right? If your roadway has an invert in the middle, meaning that everything goes to the middle and then drains down the middle to a drain, you're catching all the water. And that's bad for a road. Where do you see the damage? Right in the joint. If your roadway is crowned in the middle and everything sheathes off the road, you're sheathing all the water off the road. That's going to last longer than a roadway that's got an invert in the middle. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little later, but let's talk about the typical deficiencies that you see with asphalt. You already know what asphalt's made of. You already know that you have base and asphalt. You already know the different mixes, and you'll understand that a little bit more. But let's talk about the deficiencies that you see. We're going to talk about deficiencies here for a second, and then we'll get into how to fix those in a little bit, okay? So I'm going to talk about the ones that you will typically see in your HOAs, your condo associations, and so forth. There's a lot more than this, but I'm not going to get into those. They're going to be the ones that you're going to see. One of them right here that you see here is root damage, okay? How many of you seen root damage? I've seen it. I've tripped on them, Very big cause of liability here, okay? As you can see in this picture, you have a parking space and you have roots coming. Now, you have a tree right here and you have ficus. Ficus, horrible for asphalt, and so are trees. Now, I'd like to reach out to the landscape architects who 30 years ago designed parking lots with a 3-foot island, and they planted a really cute 4-foot oak tree. Well, that oak tree grew. And now the trunk of the oak tree is bigger than the landscape island. So, I have a joke that says that I think they knew that their grandkids were going to get into the asphalt and concrete business so they could fix what they planted in the first place. Now, if you see islands, right? Islands are 10 feet wide most of the time now. It gives it more room. It gives that tree a little bit more room to grow its roots. But unfortunately, roots seek water and they're always venturing out. And that's what you see here in this picture. These roots have come. Yep. Yeah,
that's a great question. And, we do have Beth on the line, and I'd love to see if she's available, what her thoughts are on that. Beth, are you with us? It seems like she's not. Sorry. Oh, there we go.
Here. Sorry, I just was, I didn't want to distract everybody while you were speaking. Yes, so, recently there's been a lot of activity, especially in the West Boynton area, where Palm Beach County, had once required trees to be in the swale. And starting about 3 years ago, they no longer require that. So moving forward, communities are not going to have trees in those inconvenient places. However, it has left the communities that have already been built with a very expensive and ongoing maintenance problem. Yep. And it's been in the news, and it was in the news again yesterday, that a number of communities have removed the trees at great expense, but there are still some communities where people are actually protesting the removal of the trees. But really the best thing is to remove them, because it's not just the maintenance. There's damage that's done. It lifts the sidewalk, it damages the pavement. That's all very expensive. But there's another expense that people don't consider, which is the potential for lawsuits
Yeah.
from trip and fall accidents. And that's really where even more of the expense is.
Yeah, and that's the biggest expense to me. It's not the maintenance, it's the liability, because the cost of the maintenance is minimal compared to a lawsuit of a trip and fall.
Absolutely. You could eat up your whole budget just on one incident.
Yep.
So, you know, Brightview is working with communities to help facilitate the removal of these trees, you know, throughout the area. And then facilitating with industry partners like you, you know, to repair the damage done by the roots once and for all, once those trees have been removed. In the past, communities would spend a lot of money doing root barriers, but that's kind of a Band-Aid. It only lasts for so long and it's only so effective. Really, there's nothing as effective as just completely removing the tree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Beth. Thank you.
And
I agree with everything Beth said. I mean, the root barrier is one way to do it. I mean, nowadays, you know, back in the day, we'll talk about in a little while, you know, when they put curbing in, it's mostly extruded curbing, which sits on top of the asphalt, right? Well, nowadays, most municipalities are requiring what's called a Type D curb, and we'll talk about that later on. And that's 18 inches total, okay? So it's 12 inches below the ground, the curb, and 6 inches above the ground. So that 12 inches of concrete below the ground actually does act like a concrete root barrier, and it pushes the roots down. They still will lift things up, some of them, but it does eliminate a lot of that smaller, you know, ficus and palm tree roots from getting into the asphalt. But the liability is the biggest thing, but it also costs money on the maintenance side. So what you see here is that root. And the way to do this is you do what's called a full depth patch. You cut this out, you remove the asphalt, remove the root carefully. You know, most of the time you will not kill the tree. Most of the time the tree will be fine and that tree will not fall down when we're cutting roots like this. So, you know, that's what we do. We'll remove the roots and repatch it. And we'll talk about patching later on, but this is one of the most typical things you're going to see here in South Florida, right? And it's prevalent pretty much everywhere you go. And, you know, like Beth was saying, not only are you going to find it here up against the asphalt, but if you have a sidewalk, typically you'll find them lifting the sidewalks and causing trip hazards between the flags of asphalt, of concrete. So let's get into potholes.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
For Beth, Brightview has a arborist or a division that does trees. Tree service, right, Beth?
Oh, thank you, Peggy. Excellent point.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with trees near pavement is not something to be attempted by anybody other than, you know, a true professional or an arborist, because you always want to do, you know, the right thing for everybody, you know, the community and, you know, and including the tree. Because sometimes there are options where you don't have to remove it entirely, but you really want to make sure that it's evaluated and any work is overseen by a certified arborist.
And I also want to interject because Beth's a little modest here. She is the president of the Cobra Association. So there's several ways to get a hold of Beth, and she stays in touch with the city and county commissioners and so on that tell her the requirements, you know, regarding landscaping. So
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Peggy. And in fact, it's been a number of our Cobra communities. We have 112 member communities that have been in the news lately, have been in the Palm Beach Post, even including yesterday, about this tree removal. And it's a dilemma that's very daunting for a lot of community associations. So if, you know, removing your trees prior to repairing your pavement is something that you're interested in, please reach out to me and I can connect you with some communities that have been there, done that, and can tell you how to go about it, because it can be a little bit daunting of a project. Some of these communities have removed hundreds of trees, and it does involve, you know, approval by Palm Beach County. So it is a little bit involved. So thank you.
Yeah, you can. You know what I joke about. You can get away with murder quicker than you can get away with removing a tree in some municipalities. There's a few municipalities in South Florida. I remember Sunrise was one that was really difficult with their shade trees. They love their shade trees. So if you even touched it, you know, it could be causing so much damage to, they'd rather lose parking stalls than to touch the tree back then. You know, I'm sure they've changed that a little bit because they're noticing the liability and everything else. But cutting down the trees, definitely you want to talk to somebody like Beth, because we don't do that. I mean, we can, but we're not going to do it the right way. I can tell you that. You know, that's great that you're involved in that. And it's important for the HOAs because it can cause some damage to a lot of things and be costly later on. Potholes. If you haven't been affected by one today, you will tomorrow. I mean, it's just, it is what it is here in South Florida, right? And anywhere in the country. So over the last 3 months, the amount of calls that we've gotten from potholes that have formed in those 3 months is absolutely amazing. We have actually had to reprice properties that we had given pricing to now because new stuff had formed up. So a pothole, you know, how does it form? Remember earlier I told you that here in South Florida, we get attacked from the bottom or the top? Well, let's talk about how we get attacked from the bottom. What's below us? 2 feet, 3 feet, sometimes even closer, depending on where you are. Water. We live either on the coast, right, which is, you know, water table is very high, or on an aquifer. So you pick you pick the battle, right? So we have a moving river of water, which is an aquifer below us, and you have the coast, which you have tidal waters. How many of you have been affected by king tides lately on your properties? King tides, you know, I mean, tides that are affecting everything, right? So that water rises in the water table as well. So what happens when that water rises and recedes, rises and recedes, rises and recedes? Well, what ends up happening is, remember that subbase that I told you that's pretty stable? Well, if that subbase has a lot of water and it causes a void, that's going to collapse part of your subbase and everything from the top down will collapse, right? And what you have is a pothole, but it's really a mini sinkhole. How many of you have seen a sinkhole here in South Florida, right? You see a hole and it's hollow and you wonder, where did all that stuff go? Well, where did it go? It's in your, it's below us. I mean, it moves. There's always moving. Something's always moving below us. Now, you know, you people from in the mid part of Florida, you know, you can go to sleep and your neighbor's house is there. You can wake up and the neighbor's house is gone. And those are called sinkholes, right? Here we have them smaller. There, I mean, it can swallow up houses, but what is that? It's unstable earth. It's things shifting below us. So that's really one way when we have a lot of rain, water, the ground gets saturated, tidal from the king tides, up and down, up and down, up and down. What that does, it causes voids underneath in the subbase, and it will collapse everything, and you'll have a pothole form. What's the other way it can happen? Well, you have your inch of asphalt, and you have your base below it, right? So let's say that this is my asphalt, and this is my base below it. Well, let's say there's a good crack in the asphalt and water gets between there and it causes a tiny little void like this. Yeah, you can see daylight through there. First car that goes over it cracks the asphalt more. More water gets through there, causes another void. Another car goes over it, cracks it even more. So what ends up happening is the more water gets into that crack at that area, it will cause that void. More water gets in it, washes away the fines of that subbase, and you'll have cracking, cracking, cracking. And as you can see in this picture down here, you'll notice up here, this is starting to form down here. You'll see the cracked asphalt, and you see all the base material. In that base material, you don't see the fines in it anymore, right? All you see is rocks. You see down here, you see some fines. Here you see just rocks. Well, that rock, those rocks aren't, it's lost its integrity. They don't interlock, so they're not tight. When they have all those fines holding them together, that's when it's really good, right? And that's how a pothole forms. Now, potholes are also very big cause of liabilities, not only to humans or pedestrians, also to equipment, vehicles, anything that's driving on a roadway. So, you know, potholes have to be fixed. You know, and if you're the best way to fix them is to cut them out and patch them. We'll talk about a full depth patch in a little bit. Oil spots, oil damage, right? How many of you have seen those? Come on, you've been to a shopping center, you've been to a 7-Eleven, you've been to something that you see. I mean, it's obvious. You get out, it's a brand new parking lot, and you see all these dark spots on it. And what you'll notice is typically, where are these? Usually they're in the stalls closest to either, if you're at a shopping center, it's usually the stalls closest because everybody wants to park there, or in areas that have a lot of traffic to come in, like gas stations, you know, I said convenience stores. So what is this from, right? You have a car, it's leaking oil. You know, the oil falls on the asphalt and it starts to deteriorate it. Oil will deteriorate asphalt. Gas will deteriorate asphalt. What else? In your HOAs, how many of you have seen your garbage trucks come through and they're leaking some kind of hydraulic fluid, right? That happens all the time. Also, you know, you'll see this with landscapers. You'll see this with pool guys. They'll have a spill of gas. You know, pool guys will have a spill of chlorine sometimes. You'll also see it with even my paving guys. You know, when they go out to fix stuff, they may spill some asphalt, some gas. So any type of contractor that's there that has gasoline should be careful with that. But typically it's your cars. So, you know, what ends up happening, this oil hits the asphalt. If the asphalt has not been sealed, and we'll talk about seal coating a little later, but if it has not been seal coated, the oil or the gas will penetrate the asphalt. The sun will beat down on that asphalt and it will start causing deterioration. Now, I will challenge each and every one of you. Next time you are in a shopping center or some parking stalls that have oil damage, take your key. Just take your key. Go to the worst one that you see. Bend over and just stick your key into the asphalt. It'll go in almost like butter. And what it's done, it's breaking down the asphalt binder. And, you know, you can start picking it out with your key. And you shouldn't be able to do that with asphalt. So, you know, that's what you want to do. I mean, if you have, you know, let's say you're there and somebody spills gasoline or oil right and you see it, best thing to do is throw kitty litter on. If you have kitty litter, throw it on. It soaks up those liquids very quickly. It's still going to do some damage, but at least you're trying to you know, not let it sit and soak in.
And
the other thing, yes.
I've got a quick question coming from Jay. Will seal coating protect against oil or liquid leakage? Yes,
absolutely. Seal coating will act as a barrier, and that's what seal coat has been designed for. Seal coating has been designed to repel water, repel gas, repel diesel, repel oils. It doesn't repel them, but what ends up happening is the oil or the gas sits on the sealer. And when it rains, it'll wash most of it off, right? It's like your car. If you wax your car, mud, bugs, and what have you will not stick to it as easily. If you don't wax your car, what's going to happen? It's going to take more. It's not going to doesn't protect the surface, right? So yes, that was a great question, Jay, because it will help preserve what's there. Not only is it going to protect the binder, we'll talk about sealer in a second, but it will help against all those things. So
wonderful. And I've got one other. So the remedy here is a full depth patch. And if we're doing that, does that mean replacing the sub base and the base in addition to the asphalt?
No, you don't need to do that. I mean, when I say full depth for me, I mean, we're going all the way through the asphalt. We're going to take it down to the base, not the sub base. So what you would do here is, if you notice the top picture, you've got two ways of looking at this, right? And it's all about aesthetics, right? You could cut 4x4 squares of asphalt and remove those oil damage, or you could do one cut all the way down to the sidewalk. So you have one uniform patch, or you have a bunch of patches underneath the cars. It's really up to end budgets. It's up to a budget that you might have, and also the aesthetics. Some higher golf courses and some people that hold their parking lots to a very higher standard might do one patch, so it looks more like one patch instead of a lot of different patches, right? So, it is definitely, you cut it out, you take it to the base, and you reapply the asphalt and you compact it. And we'll talk about a full depth patch later on as well.
Wonderful, thanks.
Cracking. Okay, let me disclaimer this. And there isn't one parking lot or roadway that I have put in that hasn't cracked. Okay, asphalt cracks. It's a characteristic of asphalt. There's two different types of asphalt. One that hasn't cracked and one that's gonna crack. That's it. You have to remember concrete as well. There's shrinkage. You're gonna have shrinkage cracks. Things are shifting below. You're gonna have different settlements of the ground, different loads over time. Now, you wanna keep an eye on cracks. They're not necessarily all bad. So let's talk about cracking. Now, how many of you from up north? Okay. So up north, you have winter months, correct? Down here, we don't have that. We do have winter, but it gets to 60 degrees and that's pretty much it. Up there, you have what's called freeze and thaw. And what happens if you have a crack that's a quarter inch, just a quarter inch, this big, quarter inch. During the winter, water will get into that. When that water freezes, what does water do when it freezes? It expands. And then when it melts, it contracts. Now let's say it freezes again. It expands again. So a crack that starts at a quarter inch up north can be half an inch by the end of your season or bigger, right? That's why up north they do a lot of crack filling. Here in South Florida, you won't see it as much. Okay? But let's talk about the cracking that you will see here. The one on the top, alligator cracking. Any clue on why they call it alligator cracking? Looks like an alligator skin, right? This is one of the most typical things you're going to see. Other than regular stress cracks and shrinkage cracks that are smaller. But alligator cracking is caused almost like what a pothole does, except it spreads out. It hasn't affected the base yet so much. It's spreading out more than it is in a one pinpointed area, correct? But this happens typically in areas that there's a little bit of base failure and water gets in there and it starts to crack the asphalt and it starts to expand out. And as you notice here in this picture, the cracks are very prevalent right here in this area, right? And you notice how they're getting a little bit further apart here. Well, if you let it go, it's all going to turn into this. As time goes on and the base gets weaker underneath this, it will all turn to what looks like this. Now, the idea with alligator cracking is you want to catch it quickly. And the reason I say that is because if you don't, instead of trying to do a small area, you have to take out big sections of your parking lot. Because if you notice in this picture, anywhere you look in this picture, there's a crack, correct? So where do I start my repair? Where do I end it? So it's very important to take a big area, remove all the cracking, and you patch it. But a full depth patch in this area is probably one of the most common remedies. But alligator cracking, it's prevalent a lot, usually where there's a lot of standing water. It'll happen. So you want to take care of it very quickly. Another one that you see, the one on the bottom, it's called reflective cracking, okay? Reflective cracking is cracks that reflect through from the bottom to the top. So let's say, for instance, we have a layer of asphalt like this one. And let's say there's a crack that runs down this piece of asphalt. And we do what's called an overlay. And we put asphalt on top of this piece of asphalt, right? Well, over time, this is stuck to this. They're stuck together now. Over time, when when things starts to shift a little bit, this crack will reflect right through to this new surface. How many of you have seen cracks in tile? You seen a crack in a tile floor? Well, the tile hasn't cracked. The slab below it has cracked. And that crack is reflecting through the tile, right? It's causing it to reflect through the tile. Same thing with asphalt. Anything from below will reflect to the top. Notice in this picture here, you see how perfect all these cracks are? They look like squares, right? My guess is that below that is a concrete slab. And what you're seeing is where the joints are. So at the joints of the cracks have reflected through the asphalt. So those cracks are too perfect square to be anything but something below it that has joints that is causing that to reflect through. You will never get rid of cracking in asphalt. You will always see it. It is a characteristic of asphalt. But you can do things to minimize the cracking when you're doing an overlay. So we'll talk about that. But if you notice, it says here mill and overlay. That's something that can help that. So water's your enemy. You know, standing water on asphalt is not good. Typically what we say here, 24 to 48 hours. If you have a puddle that lasts longer than 24 to 48 hours, it's not considered a puddle. It's acceptable. You know, it's very difficult as an asphalt contractor to move water. Your parking lot has to be designed with proper pitch from the beginning. Over time, things settle. Now here in South Florida, we're flat, right? We don't have a lot of changes of elevation. Up north, you could have 6 feet of change of an elevation in a parking lot. How many of you are, go to a Walmart or a shopping center up north, and it's almost like you're walking uphill from your parking stall to the stores, right? Well, that water will sheathe off of that very smoothly and very quickly. Here in South Florida, we're working with 1 inch over 100 feet sometimes. And you're trying to get that water to move. So when people ask us, can you help me and move this water? Well, if we patch this, we may move the water here or here, but we may not get it all the way to wherever the drain is in this picture. So what we try to do, if you notice this puddle here on the top, if it's a very deep puddle and if something has settled, what we'll do is we'll level that, we'll patch it and level it. And instead of it being a 2-inch puddle, now maybe it's a 1/4 inch puddle, but it's a bigger puddle. It's spread out over the parking lot, right? Well, that's going to evaporate very quickly here in South Florida. So it might last a few hours instead of a few days. So moving water is very difficult, but you want to keep an eye on it. And if there's cracks in those areas, you want to take care of those areas very, very diligently. So water is bad. Water's our enemy, and we're always fighting against it every single day here in South Florida. I'm going to jump to this one. Does anybody need to, Peggy, am I going on? Or does anybody need to take a break? Does anybody take a 5-minute break, 2-minute break, 1-minute break? Everybody good?
Yeah, no, we just continue, and then I'm trying to see if Jonathan can pull in any of the other vendors to talk about this. At some point, I want to include Lisa to talk about financing for projects like this. So it's 11:20. If you want to, take a break yourself because you've been talking a long time.
No, I'm good. I mean, I definitely want to leave some time for Lisa. So. Okay. I think if I don't take a break, it's probably better.
Okay, and then we'll wait for that. But then I also have APB American Protection Bureau. They want to talk about how they handle security while projects are going on.
Okay.
And if Jimmy gets on, Jimmy from Ellen Funding wants to say a few words. So
Great. So let me get through the maintenance procedures.
okay.
That way it'll open up the time for everybody else as well. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Perfect.
One of the things that's very difficult, and I know it's very frustrating, is what do I do? I mean, what do I do? What maintenance procedure do I take to fix what's going on? You know, making a decision is already hard enough in life, right? Me and my wife can't decide what we're going to have for dinner every single night. You know, we've known each other for 30 years, but making a decision on how to spend your money when you have a fiduciary responsibility to your association is very hard. So, you know, one of the best things to do is definitely call somebody. You know, find a contractor that you feel comfortable with that's going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly. You don't want to just have somebody tell you what you want to spend. You need to know what you need to spend. Whether you decide to do it at that point is definitely up to you. But there's no, you know, I'm not going to give you a Band-Aid and say that that's going to cure you. I'm going to tell you what you need. Well, I'm going to give you a Band-Aid to get you to that point, right? To what you need to do. So you have time to go and budget for it. You have time to go ask Lisa for money and funding if you need it, you know? So it's very important to have that kind of relationship with somebody that can do that. So feel free to give me a call anytime and I can help you with that. So let's talk about the remedies, okay? Patching. Patching is one of the things you're going to see the most, right? You know, I'm sure every one of you have seen patching. It's exactly what it sounds like. You patch asphalt. 3 different types, and I really want to touch on these 3. Cold patch, skin or skim patches, and full depth repair patch. So if you notice next to it, you'll see temporary, temporary, and permanent. Cold patch, what is it? It's cold asphalt. Any one of us can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a bag of cold asphalt. And if you have a little pothole forming, you put that bag in there, you open it up, you dump the material in, and you compact it. If you can see the guy here on the top right, can everybody see that? See the guy, he's got a tamper in his hand, and he's bent over and he's hitting that with a tamper? Well, that's called cold patch. 10 years ago, I would have told you don't ever touch it with cold patch. Now, cold patch is a lot better, but because we are in such a litigious environment, it's better to throw something in that hole than to leave it alone and leave a liability exposed. So cold patch is very good. Now, you notice this guy, right? You see this guy doing this? You see his truck? You see all the bags? See those bags? Let me give you a hint. If you need that many bags of cold patch for your parking lot, you probably need a new parking lot. At some point, your parking lot's probably to the point of no return. So, you know, but that's what you see. You'll see a guy with bags of asphalt, and you see a guy with a truck, and you see him tamping it in. Very temporary repair, but it's good for liabilities. Skim patches. Remember we talked about that alligator cracking? Well, let's say that you have a job that you're going to know you're going to remove. You're going to spend money on your parking lot in the next 6 months, but there's an area that you want to make sure doesn't get worse. A skin patch is a cheaper type of patch. And what it sounds like, it's exactly what it sounds like. We come in, we take that area that's deteriorated, we put tack on it, which is a glue, tack on it, and then we put asphalt on top of it. We don't cut anything out. We just put asphalt on top of it and compact it and kind of put that all together and make one solid surface. Now, it's temporary. As long as you don't care that it's going to break down in a few months, it's temporary. But what it allows you to do is take care of a liability temporarily in a larger area until you do the bigger, you know, remedies that you're planning. So it's budget-wise, those are good if you know you're going to do something within the next 6 months, right? Full depth patching. Look at this second picture. You see the cutout all the way to the base. They got about 4 inches of asphalt there, all the way to the base. What don't you like? What don't I like about that cut? It's not square. I like perfect squares or rectangles. You know, perfect squares or rectangles. So in this one, we cut it out. you recompact the base, and then you put asphalt into the hole, right? Now on something this thick, 4 inches, you can't put down this much asphalt and compact it all in one lift. So you have to put in some asphalt first, compact it, and then more asphalt on top and compact it. If not, it'll all settle. But this is what the finished product looks like at the bottom. It's called a full depth patch. And you see it's very nice and clean. And, you know, that's what you typically see. So that's patching. Now, what does patching solve? Root damage, right? Remember we talked about it? Oil spots, right? We talked about that. Potholes, we talked about that. Sometimes alligator cracking if it's small, right? So that's what patching can take care of. Exactly what we talked about earlier, the conditions that were causing damage. Well, this is how you fix it. Seal coating. And now I know somebody had a question about the seal coating. Jay, I believe it was. We'll talk about that now. So, you know, asphalt, remember we talked about what asphalt was. It's aggregate, which is rocks. See them all? All those little rocks, right? All that aggregate. Being held together by the asphalt, the binder, right? So if you look at it, you notice this piece of asphalt here, right? You notice you see all the aggregate, and you notice all in between it, you see the black, that's the binder. That's what's holding it together, okay? Now, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see that this is kind of rougher on the top. Can you notice that? Right? And you see how much smoother it is on the bottom? See the bottom? It's a lot smoother. Well, this has deteriorated from the top down. But what deteriorates? Not the rocks. The asphalt holding it all together. So if you can imagine, you know, you have a perfectly smooth surface, and as it deteriorates from the top down, a lot of the rock starts to show. And that's what you're seeing in this picture right here, in this piece of asphalt. You can see the rocks showing. Yeah, that's the best one I can show you. So, or this one here. You can see that you see the rocks showing here. Right there. See that? It's not smooth. So what you're trying to protect is the binder. Okay? You're trying to protect the binder. So seal coat is pretty much, you know, a waterproofer for your asphalt. Even your asphalt needs waterproofing. People ask me wholeheartedly if I believe in it, and I tell them I do. I believe in seal coating. Some people don't. I believe in it. And I only believe in it when it's done at the right time. It has to be done at the right time. If you wait 10 years and then you say, I want to seal coat my parking lot. Well, it's going to make it look nice for a little while, but you really already wasted a lot of the maintenance benefits of that sealer. Let me give you an example. You know, it's a beautiful day today. Let's say during the summer, it's a summer day, let's say, and we go to the beach. And we get there at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Then we start having some drinks. We start playing volleyball. We go to a barbecue. We do whatever. And now let's say it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We touch our skin. We see that we're getting sunburnt. We reach into our bag and we grab sunscreen. Is it too late? We've already gotten sunburned. Asphalt gets sunburned too. Those UV rays are constantly hitting that asphalt, and it deteriorates it. That's why you watch asphalt go from the color of my shirt here in South Florida to a light gray in less than 3 months. And then you watch it go to a very gray color like this one, because that's what most of the streets look like, right? Instead of this jet black color that it was put down originally. You notice the difference? See that? So it gets oxidized. Anything that oxidizes, it becomes brittle. And then when it becomes brittle, it starts to break apart. Plus you lose thickness. What's happened in these pieces of asphalt, some of the binder has worn off and you've lost some thickness due to the constant wear and tear on this asphalt. So sealer acts as a waterproofing agent. So you have two different types of sealers, a coal tar emulsion and an asphalt emulsion. When you put these sealers on there, whether it's coal tar or asphalt, they will protect against oil. They'll protect against weather. water, salt. People think, oh, you know, up north we have salt. They throw it because of the snowplow and the snow. Here we have it in the air. We're so close to the ocean. That'll break down your asphalt. So the sealer acts as a waterproofing agent and a sunscreen for your asphalt. Two different ways of
here. I've got a question here about the estimated life of seal coating, and it looks like you've got a couple different types here. You know, how does that relate to the life cycle?
Okay, that's a great question. What I can tell you is it all depends on the traffic and the condition of the parking lot when we put the sealer on. Now, the reason I say this is if you have a perfectly smooth surface or a very smooth surface of asphalt, the sealer will last longer. If you have a more rocky faced, the sealer will wear quicker. Why? Because the sealer on top of the rock will rub off quicker because of the tires, right? Now, typically in your parking stalls, if you notice the shopping center in this picture, you'll see that you have parking stalls and drive lanes, right? Typically the drive lanes and the turns and the entrances will wear faster. The parking stalls will wear slower, less traffic, right? I would tell you that you could have sealer last 10 years in your parking stalls, but in your drive lanes, you're going to see that 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to redo it. Okay. But if your parking lot is a shopping center and you have thousands of cars every single day, it could last a couple years less. If it's an HOA with 32 houses and that's all you have, it could last a lot longer. So depends on the application will make it last. Like I was saying, mechanical spray or squeegee. Squeegee is exactly what it sounds like. Imagine when you paint your walls, right? You paint them with a roller, right? Or you see some painters spraying it, right? Well, a roller puts more material down. Spray puts a little bit less, but it's more even, right? So squeegee application puts a lot more material down, and we like that as the first coat, and then you follow it up with a spray coat. If you do a 1-coat squeegee, 1-coat spray, you're going to get more out of it than if you do 2-coat spray.
And I've got a question from Jay along those lines. What's the typical thickness of a seal coat?
It's millimeters, mils thickness. It's like it's up to it's less than a 1/4 inch. I mean, less than an eighth, probably an eighth or a 16th of an inch after the 2-coat application. You're talking about mil thickness. You're not talking about inches anymore. Okay. And if you ask any seal coat manufacturer, they'll tell you you want 2 thinner coats of sealer than 1 thick coat of sealer. How many of you have painted something with too much paint? What happens to the paint? It cracks, right? Especially when it warms up. A lot of sun on it, expand, contract, expand, contract. Well, it'll crack. Sealer will do the same. So 2 thinner coats is better than 1 thick coat, okay?
Wonderful. And what's the composition of coal tar and asphalt emulsion? Okay.
Coal tar emulsion is from, coal tar. You guys know what coal tar is. You see it in skin products. You see it in hair products. Coal tar is derived from the steel industry. It's a byproduct of the steel industry. It's slag. It's an emulsion made from that. And then it's mixed with water, and you have a product that's, they mix with water, they mix it with binders and different things to make it a durable coating. Asphalt emulsion has asphalt in it. So it's, instead of the coal tar emulsion that they make, it's asphalt based. So that's the biggest differences, right? So the composition, one's coal tar, the other one's asphalt. One's come from the asphalt industry and one is from the steel industry. I like coal tar. There's a lot of talk that it's not safe. I like coal tar. It resists oil, diesel a lot better. Asphalt emulsion has gotten a lot better though. You know, before in the old days, you'd have to put so many additives in asphalt emulsion to get it to act like coal tar. Today, they could be comparable. So two different types of emulsions. It's really up to the contractor or whoever specs it. So
awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. And I do have a couple other questions while we're on this sealer topic. We've got one question. A vendor who advertises a conditioner and not a sealer, are there other sealers being used, or is it a uniform product?
You know, seal coat or sealers are that. You're going to either have a coal tar emulsion or an asphalt emulsion. Now they have new emulsions, which are called, they're more petroleum based, new sealers. What you're talking about is what's called, they're calling them rejuvenators or a conditioner. I've never installed them. I don't truly have enough information to say yes or no whether they work. I just, you know, look, as human beings, we live our lives trying to rejuvenate, right? You know, there's a lot of creams out there in the market that you put on your face. It's going to make you look younger and it's going to make you look better. You know, when the damage is done, the damage is done. I don't believe there's much that can rejuvenate anything. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that that's true, but it's an opinion. You know, when asphalt gets cracked, when asphalt loses, it becomes brittle. You're not going to condition it so much, but that's what they're talking. It's more of a conditioner or a rejuvenator. What we do is seal coat. We will seal that asphalt.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Welcome. So let's talk about overlay and resurfacing. So overlay, we talked about that. You have a surface of asphalt. If everything below it's good and the asphalt's still good, what do? Put another top of asphalt on top of it. Okay. So overlay is a very good maintenance procedure. And it is a maintenance procedure because what you're doing is you're extending the life of your road by another 20 to 30 years, depending on the traffic. You can see in this picture, you have an asphalt surface and you overlaid it with new asphalt, right? When you overlay though, you want to take very good care of wherever it becomes flush with like another surface. Okay. You want to make sure you cut out so the two surfaces can meet. But an overlay is exactly what it sounds like. You put asphalt on top of asphalt. Okay, you don't remove anything. Milling. Let's say you have this asphalt that thick, and what you want to do, just the top layer of it's bad. Well, you get a milling machine that you see here in the top right-hand corner will come in and you set it to go 1 inch down, and it'll mill the bad asphalt off, right? So you'll mill 1 inch off of this asphalt throughout your whole parking lot, and then you'll replace it with 1 inch of asphalt. So, you know, milling and paving is also a very, very, very good maintenance procedure. It will also extend the life of your parking lot or your roadway. Let's say your asphalt has a lot of cracks on it on the surface. When you mill it, it will reduce the reflective crack. Remember we talked about reflective cracking earlier? If you mill it and remove a lot of that surface cracking, you will actually reduce the amount of reflective cracking that you're going to have later on. So that's very, very good procedure. But when it's too late, what do you have to do? You have to repave. And that means get all the asphalt, take it all out. Sometimes you have to take out even the base and the sub, not the sub base, but the base, and start all over. And that becomes very costly. That's why asphalt maintenance, it's all about taking care of what's below it. And if you can keep your asphalt maintenance up, it'll cost you, for every dollar you spend now, or for every dollar you don't spend now, it can cost you up to $8 later. That's the ratio, okay? So you'll notice the milling machine chops up all that asphalt, puts it in a truck, takes it to the asphalt plant, correct? And down here, you see them repaving, completely repaving a parking lot. Remember, we talked about curbing real fast. 3 different, you know, you got a few different types, but the ones you see in your parking lots. Up here, extruded curb. Remember, it sat on top of the asphalt? Right here, you have a type D curb, 18 inches. So 12 inches is below the ground, 6 inches is above. You see this? When they put in the asphalt, you're not going to see a lot of that curb. You're only going to see the top of it. And down here, you see valley gutter. You know, that drains some water. Striping. You know, you have two different types, water-based and oil-based. Here's what down here we use water-based. That's what you're typically going to see. You know, parking lots are striped with either water-based paint. And then what you'll see also in our parking lots is what we call thermoplastic. Thermoplastic paint is thicker. It's melted plastic. And what you'll typically see this on your entrances and exits leading into the public right-of-way. So that's typically where you see that. And you can add reflective beads to this so it can show, have reflectivity when cars lights hit it. So that's a very good, thing to have in roadways inside your neighborhood. You know, it reflects that light on the roadways. And then to pretty much, I'm going to end it with signage. You know, signage is very important. It's, you know, regulatory signage, stop signs, handicap stall signs, turn arrows, any kind of message you're trying to get across. What you have to truly remember is the number 7. The majority of signs have to be a minimum of 7 feet to the bottom of the sign from the surface. That gives pedestrians, people, a chance to walk under them. It also allows vehicles that are close to them, like a car, if it's too close to the edge, to not hit them. But, you know, most of the time, 7 feet above the finished elevation. So that is pretty much it. I mean, I'll answer any other questions you might have, but I want to be sure that everybody else has a chance to talk about how, how you can get, Beth to do some landscaping or Lisa to give you money for me to do a job.
Okay, great class, Mauro. It's always great to have you give your presentation. So with that, I want to turn it over to Lisa. Lisa, you want to talk a little bit about financing these type projects?
Sure. Mario was talking about how he's finding these projects that need to be done, and we at Alliance Association Bank are able to finance those projects. So that makes sure that Mario gets paid and he's a very happy contractor. So speaking of funding though, for associations, one of the most important things is to prepare, because if you're looking to get any sort of financing, you want to make sure you're preparing for that. One of the ways to get prepared for it is to definitely talk with your association attorney and make sure that your association does have the ability to borrow money. A lot of roadblocks will come up if we go down that path, we get the loan approved, and then we find out from the association attorney that the association does not have the ability to borrow money. Another thing may be that they have the ability to borrow money, but it requires some sort of ownership vote. So there you would want to engage Jonathan's company for doing electronic voting to help ownership vote that is needed. So let's say your association finds out that they can borrow money, then the next step is we actually have a 1-page loan proposal form, and they would submit their recent so we can see how the fiscal responsibility of the association is. One of the most important things that we're looking at is the delinquency. So if you have 100 units in your association and you have over 10 that are past due, then you may want to talk to Jimmy at LM Funding to help reduce those delinquencies, because we are looking at a maximum of 10% delinquency. Another thing we look at is the liquidity. If you have an annual budget of $100,000, we like to see at least $20,000 in your total bank accounts. So let's say you meet those parameters, then what you do is we look to see if we're able to issue a term sheet for you. And in that term sheet, we give you your financing options. So depending on what the project is, let's say you are doing a paving project with Mario, our minimum amount is only $100,000. So we're able to help that association. But maybe your association doesn't want to borrow money, then there's some other options. They can implement a special assessment, which all owners just absolutely love, not, but that is one option. They can also, what they can do is just stroke a check if they have the necessary funds, so they can just pay it that way. Another thing is when it comes to the special assessment and with the reserves, you can do a combination. So maybe you can use a portion of your reserves and implement a special assessment, or with us, maybe you can get a partial loan, use some of your reserves, and maybe have a smaller special assessment. So there's a lot of different options that are involved. And what we at Alliance Association Bank want to do is we want to help you, because doing these projects, what's it's going to do is help increase the value of your property. So if Mario's doing this beautiful paving job and Beth is enhancing your landscaping, what's that going to do to the value of your property? It's going to help it increase. And we all work together as a team because we want to make sure that we're able to protect, maintain, and enhance your community. So I'm available to answer any other financing, banking questions you may have. And I hope you've learned a lot from Mario today about paving and asphalt. And wishing all of you a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Lisa. I do have a couple quick questions. One, Mauro, I've got some questions about the actual PowerPoint slides. Would you be able to provide those?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. I do have a question here from Tom. Tom, are you online? And it looks like we've also got James who's joined us from LM Funding. James, would you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about LM Funding.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about my delay, but I had a big presentation this morning that I had to attend, and we've wrapped that up. I'm Jimmy Gonzalez with LM Funding. LM Funding is a specialty finance company. Unlike Lisa's bank, they lend money. We give money away. Now, not in the same regard that you might be hoping for, but if you have any delinquencies in your community, we are not a collection company, but a specialty finance company. We're traded publicly on the NASDAQ. We have a lot of money right now to give away. When I say that, we fund upfront the monies percentage-wise, like a factoring model, a safe harbor upfront to your association, regardless of a collection effort or not. And when we do make a full collection, or when the attorneys make a full collection, then you get all of your assessments, any fines, fees, anything they have on the ledger. If we make a full collection, what we keep for our profit fees is the late fee and the interest. Everything else goes to the association. If there is no collection to be made, that's the real benefit, then you keep the money we gave you up front and we pay the attorney's fees and costs. Right now, even if you're on a deferred plan with your attorneys, you have to pay for the work that they have done. In our case, our model, we absorb all those fees and costs from the attorneys if there is no collection to be made. And right now, we actually have a referral plan going on. Any association that has not done business with us in the past, if you have just a minimum of just three delinquent units, the person referring would receive $500. And this is a great time. You could put a lot of things under your tree for that money. So unlike Lisa, and we have done things together, Lisa and I, her bank, that if she finds somebody that needs the loan and they're unable to at the present time due to an AR situation, then she calls me up and says, Jimmy, see what you can do for them. We get them under the criteria that she needs. Once we do that, we give it back to Lisa. You get your loan, you do your projects that you need to do. So we're here to help in that way. We will help you get to the criteria that Lisa needs because she's got some of the best rates around right now. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend her, and we're here to help in any way that we can. If you have any questions, you have my information on your on the website, and I'd love to meet with you and come out to your property and do an assessment and let you know how we can help.
I just want to touch on what Lisa and James have talked about from a contractor point of view. You know, we've seen a lot of associations that we will come in and we will look at a property and we will make an assumption of what needs to happen, or the definite that needs to happen, or a scope that needs to be done, a remedy, you know. And one of the biggest things has always been budgets. And we're very sensitive to that, right? The budget that they might have based on the reserve that they have or what have you. But what we found sometimes is that they said, well, you know, we're going to do this instead and get the money to do what we need to do. Well, it might take them 6 months to a year to do that. And by the time they go to do it, it takes a lot more money to do what we wanted to do, because now it's even worse than it was before. So like I said, in the paving business, I don't know about in anything else, but in my business, time equals money. You know, if $1 you don't spend now will cost me $8, it costs you $8 later, because it's not getting better. And when it deteriorates, it goes fast. So just remember, if you have funding available, it might be a good thing, because you probably will save money if you do it now and then pay that loan off somehow, however you were going to do it. But at least the situation hasn't gotten worse. So just a real quick touch on that.
And let's face it, you know, nobody really knows this entire year what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Yeah. With the pandemic, with the COVID, with the financial availability that we have as we have it right now. So even if you don't have a delinquency right now, tomorrow might drop on you. So it's better to prepare and to have a plan in place. Essentially, like I said, there's no cost to the association to do business with us. We will fund you up front, and we will get you into the criteria that Lisa needs if you need a loan. And if there's no collection to be made because of safe harbor or a bank foreclosure, we cover all the attorney's fees and costs. So we're here for you to help you, and give me a call and we can set some time aside and go into more details.
I guess the only thing, Jimmy, I'd like you to touch on is to explain how you're not a collection agency. In other words, you're using an attorney arm, right? And
correct.
Then I don't know of any other attorneys that are advancing money that doesn't have to be paid back. So
right. Or cover the costs if there's no collection to be made, regardless. So yes, again, not a collection company. So we're not going to come after you. The money that we fund up front does not have to be repaid, because it's not a loan. It is purchasing portion of your delinquency, portion of the debt. We are purchasing that. So we don't even have a contract. We have a purchase agreement. And basically the agreement is that we're going to keep the late fee and the interest. You keep all of the assessments, everything that belongs to the association. We worked by your declaration, okay? So everything that's in there that we're allowed to do is dictated by your declaration and by state statute, only using attorneys. It's a separate firm altogether throughout the entire state of Florida. We've gone into other states. We've been doing business in other states as well, but our concentration is right here in Florida. Again, we're a publicly traded company, so our finances are out there and available for anybody and everybody to see because we're publicly traded. But that's the key. I mean, that's the key. We don't charge you, they do.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Jonathan, did you want to expound on your communication with your software?
Yeah, that would be great. And you know, as we're going through this presentation, you know, Mauro was kind of saying how some of these associations might do projects that are split up in maybe different streets, maybe one parking lot this day, maybe another parking lot another day or week or month. And that's kind of what Vinteum specializes in, is allowing that communication to occur. So, you know, you don't want to let everybody know what's going on at the same time, right? Especially if it's not relevant. So with Vinteum, you know, we've got this public facing website. People could check on that at any time, but we do have some specialties as it comes to communication. So If you are doing one parking lot from one building, you could go ahead and notify that community, that's building specifically. In addition, if you notice that one of the cars hasn't been moved, you could go ahead and send them a voice automated message, which will reach out to their landline, their cell phone, office line. In addition, text message directly to their cell phone. We've got a lot of different tools there. In addition, as we're getting to, we've got the funding in place. We're looking at Morrow. We're trying to decide whether or not to move forward. Well, we did launch a integration with Zoom towards the beginning of October, and we now allow residents and boards to meet on Zoom. It's kind of super powered by Vinteum. We've got the agenda. We've got the ability to cast a vote, ultimately determining whether or not we're going to be moving forward based off of the guidance that James, Lisa, and Morrow have provided. So if you have any other questions about our software, how it might be able to help as you're approaching these different options, as you're looking at different vendor bids, feel free to reach out, and I'll include my contact information in the chat.
If I can just add to that, I mean, communications is absolutely the most important aspect to management, to community management, not just property management. That's right. I'm a CAM also, and I somewhat get offended when people say I'm a property manager. And I say, no, I'm not a property manager. I'm a community association manager. Big difference, because you have to relate to, you have to communicate with all the populace that live in that community, not just a building and an owner. So that's hugely important that you have that ability, and that's very important in your software. Thank you.
Great point, Jimmy. Is Tom or Art still on to talk about logistics with their team as far as, Tom, are you there? Okay. We do have just a couple final more minutes. We haven't been able to do this at other seminars. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to give my number of how to reach Pura Clean. If anybody on the audience would like to write this down, the best number to reach me is 561-666-0427 or 561-277-6565. Jonathan, what's your best number?
844-900-0910.
Jimmy?
And I sent that in the chat as well.
I'm sorry. Jimmy?
Mine is 954-248-0258. That's my personal cell. Call me, text me, and we can hook up.
Okay, Beth?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, hon.
Mine is 561-335-8362, and I did put that and my email address in the chat box. And I just want to say I hope everybody has a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving.
Okay, Lisa?
My number is 561-212-2091. That is my personal cell, and I know a lot of people also like to text, and you're welcome to text me at that number as well. And I put my email address and my phone number in the chat box.
Okay. And Morrow, would you like to
Sure.
give your number?
You can reach my office, 561-572-2600, or my cell phone, 305-469-0935. You can also ask for Dawn. She will be more than happy to take care of anybody as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and be safe. Please wear your mask. Please social distance. And we look forward to seeing you in December. We'll have a couple more seminars ahead, and have a great holiday.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Morrow, I did get one question as it relates to the CEU credits. We've got a couple managers on here. Just wondering how that process will work.
If we have a copy of their CAM license, Don will update those directly into the state website, and they will get their credit. As long as everybody did the registration, I guess, and we have a list of, we have to have two things we have to have. I want to know their name. We have to know their license number and an email address as well.
We've got those 3 pieces, so you'll have access to those. And as far as a timeline, I'd imagine, you know, within the next week or so.
I would think that they would go up pretty quick. Just remember, we got the holidays coming up, so just bear with us. We have to upload those manually into that.
Wonderful. Okay.
Right.
So thank you very much for that, Mauro. I appreciate it. Everyone have a wonderful day. And if there's any other questions, feel free to shoot us a quick note. And thanks for all of the vendors for being here as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Day. Happy Thanksgiving.